This is Two Autistics Talk Money. I am your co-host, Andrew Comero. I know a lot about money, and we're joined by Brigid, who knows a lot about everything else.
Yes, except for financials, and specializing in this month in mermaid wear and sparkles.
Speaking of which, why are you wearing a crown?
Why aren't you wearing a crown? I'm wearing this crown because I got it yesterday in the mail as the Monarch Maine representative from the Monarch International Mermaid Pageant. Yeah, so I decided to just wear a crown on a regular basis because the world needs a little bit more of that some days.
I think that's fair. I agree with that.
Yeah.
So today,
I can make you a crown that has something to do with financials. So you
what
can
would it
have,
look like? I mean, would it be, I don't know if I'd wear it though. I
I can
mean,
make it for your kids.
you can make a tiara for Emma.
I will absolutely make. Yes.
Have you seen the dollar bill? Have I sent that to you?
Yeah.
Have you seen her wrapped in said rug?
I have not seen your child wrapped in a rug.
So I
no.
bought, it was on sale, so therefore it was free because of mini economics, which I think we've spoken about before, which is essentially if something's on sale so much, they pay you to take it. This is because my grandmother, Minnie, that was her legal name, that was her philosophy with things. So there was like a $7 rug that has a $100 bill. So I bring it home because I ordered two. I mean, I have to, right? It was only $7. There's one in the office in our break room. And then I bring one home for my daughter who gets very excited about it. So she like comes, I think like downstairs or just like out of playroom, and she has it wrapped around her like a dress. So I have that picture somewhere. I can show it to you. And you know what? If it makes her happy, like great. Obviously, it made me happy. So she actually has a Play Store, actually. So that's currently the dollar bill floor mat is under the Play Store.
I like it. That seems like an appropriate place as well as in your break room.
Yeah. So I think a tiara would go well there. So or a crown or any of it. All of it. All of it. She says all of it a lot, right? Would you like a few bites? All of it. So exactly. So today we are going to talk about people being taken advantage of financially. I probably have some good wisdom. Brigid has some good stories, and together we'll just see how that works. And, especially to, I talk to a lot of, again, especially neurodiverse and autistic people. I find that generally we're way harder on ourselves in general, but I find especially when it comes to finances, a lot of my clients who are, let's say they're not neurodiverse or just people I run into, I know, they're also very bad with money, except either they don't care, they're not told that they're bad at things or bad with money, right? Or they think they're good and they're just not. But I find in a lot of ways, autistics are really like very much self-aware, but that can also lead us to trusting others too much and being taken advantage of. So that's something we want to talk about today. And we want to use some fun stories to try to also give some hints and tips how you can not give all your money to some person in Africa because you won the lottery. So
yeah, I think it's definitely, I was talking about this subject a little earlier with my mom, and it's not a happy subject. It's really not. Unfortunately, it's one that I'm pretty sure every autistic or neurodivergent person has encountered at least once in their life. We're talking maybe small scale, like giving $10 to your so-called friend, or something larger like an online purchase from a unauthorized person, or there's a whole scope of things. And I think we'll talk a little bit about the issue that a lot of us face, that I speak about a lot, of how we spend a lot of time and effort and energy telling disabled people how they should treat others, but we do not put enough emphasis on how we should be treated. And I think that really opens the door for financial abuse, being taken advantage of, cons, scams, when we don't know that something sounds a little bit too good to be true. Maybe it is.
And I think a lot of it is, I think if there's one takeaway from any autistic person, especially just watching this, right? What we should keep in mind is that don't let, if somebody is telling you that you're not good with money, but you feel that you probably are. I met one adult, he was an adult who was getting some services from the state, and one of them included some kind of money coach. He was better with money than the person who was helping him. So also, just because you're being offered some sort of resource doesn't mean you should take it. That doesn't mean that it's valuable. It could be a downgrade for you, right? So don't just take something. This isn't like you're in a furniture store and they're offering you cookies because you went in there and they want you to buy furniture and they're free, or like Costco samples, right? You shouldn't take something just because it's there and just because it's available, especially if you find you don't necessarily need help with it. It could end up being more harmful.
True. They may not be chocolate chip cookies. They may have raisins in them. And then that's a lose-lose. But I will argue that even if you do think that you're good with money sometimes, does not necessarily, like, you can overestimate how good you are with money. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't know when this is airing, not till like April. So right now, as we're recording it, there was a sale on Swarovski crystals. Like,
what is a Swarovski crystal?
Swarovski, like SW, like fancy.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because they're discontinuing some of the products. So I may have gone on a massive shopping spree and bought 96 bags of beads. Do I need that? No. Do I want that? Yes. Are they possibly going to sit in that drawer for a while? Like, do I still think that I'm good with financials? No, that's why I'm on this side of the financial podcast window, and you're on that one. And how I don't do this, like, talk about finances.
But you're also aware too, right? You're aware that, like, but it also makes you happy. And there's a certain point where, like, I find, a lot of the people who talk about, and this comes down to a lot of even professionals. Like, if somebody, I get a lot of, and my brother-in-law is really into stocks and he talks about it all the time. I get to see those people because they come to me for help when they've screwed things up a lot. The point is that usually the person talking about their winnings is not talking about their losings. It's kind of like most people, say, like, I'm a really good gambler, right? And the stock market's not gambling. But at the end, yes, they may research, they may have more information, it may interest them more, but also just because something interests them more doesn't mean that they're actually better off with it. There was a study that when it comes to investing, generally women are better than men.
Yeah.
And that's because, do you know why? You want to take a guess?
Because we know when to stop.
That's basically correct. But even further, they don't start, right?
But that's like saying, that's like saying the only way not to get.
Well, no. But what I mean is they don't make changes. They don't think that they can. So, like, the men will buy and sell and move things around, and the women are like, I'm going to listen to people like Warren Buffett. I'm going to buy and hold, right? I'm going to ride ups and downs. I'm in it for the long run. And the men are thinking, I can make a quick buck day trading, right? And again, a very overgeneralization, but that's literally all statistics. So essentially what I take away from that, the women probably don't think they know as much, but they're doing better than the men who think they know more. I think in a lot of ways, not necessarily that same example, we could learn a lot from that financial literacy. Sometimes just having, I always like to equate to diets, right? My budget analogy, where great, you don't have a budget. a lot of people who are eating well and exercising don't feel like they're on a diet. They have good habits, right? So, but I think very similarly, somebody who's just healthy and they have good habits, they may not know all the latest like diet trends and all these like fancy alternatives and all these, again, trends that are less likely to stick. That's not saying that the person who's up to date with all of those things is necessarily doing a better job. Paying attention to something is not always, doesn't always mean that you're better at it, especially when it comes to money. Some of the best money advice is literally just kind of putting things on autopilot with good habits. So, little sidetrack there, but you know, if you're going to listen to this podcast, you should expect that. So,
yeah, you're gonna go on an adventure and you're gonna learn things and it's going to be entertaining.
I mean, what more could you ask for? Adventure, learning, entertainment. Awesome.
Mermaids,
yes,
unicorns, sparkles, and statistics.
So nice for anyone who couldn't tell, because it's mostly autistic podcast. Her tone got much lower.
Right. I like statistics, but yeah. I understood it.
Yes. So
things that we can understand. What are, I mean, do you want to just jump in?
Let's jump in. You said you had a good story of a time where you or someone you know was maybe taken advantage of financially.
Oh, I have so many. I've been that.
Okay, give us a fun one.
Okay, fun one, I think. I think the fun ones are the ones where it's like equating to giving away like $5 to someone, or to do a kind of, you think of it like a scratch card, like a lotto thing, investing, I use the term loosely, into something that is a very low stakes thing. I mean, I'm the type of person where I'll give funds to people who are on the street, like whether they're performers or just people. I think the more fun stuff out there is less serious. Like when it comes to the larger amounts of money that I've maybe lost over time, those are from more malicious people that you think it's a legit venture that you're going into or you're buying, especially as a performer. Like I've been in situations where it's like, hey, here's this application fee and then you can be part of this, and then you find out that the festival that you thought you were signing up for never existed and no one knows about it, and then the guy just takes all the money and runs.
So what feedback would you have, what suggestions would you have for somebody who wants to, is there like a 1 or 2 golden rules, like for how to, like what to look for? I mean, you just mentioned an application fee, right?
Yeah. So I think some of the big stuff to keep in mind is knowing yourself. So if you're the type of person that if you don't have cash on you and you use cards and you don't think that exists in the world, like we've talked a little bit before of like using the envelope system to keep track of your cash, you maybe want to have that same type of principle that you use and only carry cash, only use cash for certain transactions, and get receipts. Receipts are awesome. Yes, they may live at the bottom of your purse or like jacket. I have a huge pile of receipts from...
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you. This is serious. It's not actually serious, but it is. So receipts. I mean, obviously CVS is known for their super long receipts. Nobody likes printed receipts, and most places can't email receipts, right? So what I don't understand, out of all the companies who figured this out, I had to go to Home Depot this weekend to get a space heater. Okay. Home Depot recognizes my credit card and will email me a receipt. I don't give my name. I don't give my number. I don't give my email. They see my credit card. Home Depot can email me a receipt. How is Home Depot the only company, like the place where I think people care the least, who will automatically email receipts at retail stores when you go in person? Like, why doesn't Dunkin' Donuts do that? Like literally just credit card. You give the credit card and the receipt is emailed. They know it's you because they know it's your credit card.
Have we talked about how when you can actually get chips into your hands to purchase things, you are absolutely going to sign up for that? Because I totally think that you will.
Wait, what?
So that like you can just get like
oh, sorry, I was thinking like poker chips. I'm like,
No.
man, like, why are you telling me to sign up to get like free chips? Like,
We talked about
I mean, I
MLM.
probably would, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, that seemed even, you know, separate even for us. But like Dunkin' Donuts handing me the receipt, like, can I trade that with Home Depot? Can they like license that technology? Sorry, continue about receipts.
But anyway, getting receipts for things as a way to kind of keep track of what you're spending and to make sure that it's a legit thing. I also think being careful what you purchase online and how you purchase it is really important. Don't use the send money to friends and family thing. Like that's a big one. Like don't do that unless you're actually sending like money to someone that you know face to face, not virtually, but like you can go poke them on the nose.
So to explain in financial terms, what Brigid's saying is like PayPal, there's a fee to send money that, you know, everyone pays fees with credit cards, etc. But if you send money to friends or family, there's no fee. But that also means you don't get protection if somebody doesn't send you the item, if they're scamming you. Essentially, if they're not a friend or family, don't use friend or family. I really think it's that simple. It's not worth the extra couple dollars, in my opinion. You know, have the person give you a discount, you know, think it costs a little bit more. But if they're not friends or family, get that protection. So,
yeah. And I think I'm also part of a couple groups on Facebook that let people know about common scams. I think that that's a really good thing, whether it's in the surface world of, hey, this person was going to make me a $500 prop and their business went under and they're not giving anyone props and stuff now, or someone in the mermaid community, because some of these items are really high priced and you just want to be able to know who are the shady people, if there's someone who is authentic, but maybe too, I mean, we're still in a pandemic. Being able to ship stuff overseas does take a little while longer.
no, and I think that's a good point too. So, but let's say, I mean, what else did somebody look for? So we have like a tip or two, right? So we have friends or family, only send to friends or family. I think that's a pretty good rule to follow, right?
Also, never click email links. That's a big one that is still going around today of, oh, your Netflix account, like the payment stopped, like click here, sign in and put in your card information again, or PayPal. Like I was seeing those getting circled around.
So I actually got a very impressive one that was very much targeted at financial advisors. And it said, I'm looking to fire my financial advisor, right? But what was interesting is it wasn't just super generic. The person mentioned 2 other specific types of investment companies, right? And offered to send me the statements from them, right? And there were some red flags. So the first red flag is I look at the email address itself in addition to that name, like in Gmail or whatever will tell you. And even if you go to hit reply, then it might show a different email or a different name. Like when you get an email, so there, again, it's pretending to be somebody else. So Brigid could get an email from somebody pretending to be me, for example, right? But it's not actually me when you look at the actual email address. So basically, even if you're remotely unsure, you know, don't do things like friends or family or gift cards or cash. Credit cards, even if it's a debit card, if it's credit, it offers protection. Debit, it doesn't. So had somebody, again, where if you buy something with a credit card, or if you only have a debit card, but you use it as credit, this protection that the credit companies can provide for fraud. And it's a lot easier to be able to get refunds if you're in a situation like that.
So I have a question. I have a bank card and it has I think MasterCard as the logo on it. So if I run that as a credit, because you can choose credit or debit. So if I run it as a credit, I have protection now?
Correct. You have protection that you would not have if it was debit.
Whoa. Okay. I never knew that was a thing.
Yeah. See?
I just thought you choose 2 random buttons and then you put the card in. Okay. That's a thing. Huh.
Yeah. So my rule with that is unless it's like a small merchant, because the fees for debit for like a small like shop or provider or like one of the 500 sellers Brigid buys things from a month who sell mermaid stuff that's in a drawer over there. They pay higher fees, generally speaking, for credit versus debit. So, I mean, also probably not going to want to, scam them or something, or they're not going to scam you.
Yeah, but again, if you're buying from again, on the list of things that is currently in the mail, a giant snow leopard onesie, buying that from an international merchant, using my card as credit.
10 times better. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. If you are purchasing international, you know those foreign transaction fees?
Yes.
So did you know that there might be others, but the go-to is actually Capital One does not charge foreign transaction fees?
My bank does not.
So cool. A lot of banks don't. You probably have some local bank in the middle of nowhere.
I do. I have to drive 30 minutes in order to get to my local bank.
So, but I do know that Capital One does not charge foreign transaction fees as well for people who do not want to drive to Brigid's bank. There might be others, but those can be pesky. And that's essentially like a tax for buying something internationally. So banks can make more money.
I got a question or a situation that's very real and it's not
a friend.
Sure.
Okay.
Or 5 million people that have been through this. So if you are, say I'm a person who is helping to financially support someone else, maybe it's a mom, aunt, friend, I'm in a relationship and I'm giving this person a certain amount of money repeatedly. Think it's for bills, think it's for this or that. And if you look at how much money I'm giving away, it is becoming, it's not a strain, but it's a lot of money. Do you have any advice on how to navigate those types of relationships when it might not be healthy or beneficial and the person guilts you into giving them money?
I don't know if this really helps a person who's in that situation to begin with. But what I can say is the best thing to do is just make a policy where you don't do that, right? And make it a boundary, make it a line that you don't mix friends and money, right? And that you don't, if it's a one time and somebody needs money and they say, can I borrow money? And you really want to give them the money, I would tell them, it's not a loan. I'm going to give it to you because you're my friend and I can tell that you need it. It's a one-time thing. I don't expect this back, right? Because, then that takes a lot of also awkwardness away as well. So you're giving them the money the one time, you're still helping the friend. And chances are if you loaned a friend money, you wouldn't get it back anyway.
Yeah.
You're really just being more blunt and upfront to really what's going to happen regardless. If it's something where hey, one of you forgot dinner, right? and somebody paid and the other one didn't. Let's come up with a rule that I'm going to make up just now. Let's say 3 times, or like 3 times in a short period or in a row, or however you want to make 3 times fit into your life. Because at that point, it's not an accident. If your friend forgets, if me and Brigid go to lunch after every podcast and 3 times in a row, Brigid's like, oh, I forgot my wallet. Well, I'll pay you back later, and hasn't, right? What you should do is just cut them off, like say no. It can be really hard. I don't think there's another way to put it other than you might lose a friend who wasn't really a friend. And I know that's really hard, but I really think it's about setting some pretty clear boundaries. And there's the difference between once in a while and versus something that's repeated. So when I help a friend out, or I give them money, or even anything like that, I do it with the expectation it's a gesture of kindness. It's like giving a gift, because we've talked about giving gifts. It's like appreciative, like I'm giving somebody a gift because I appreciate them. And that's it, right? That's done. If it's something where the person repeatedly is asking money, things come up, same situations, right? Or there's the best thing you can do for them is to help them help themselves. Some people will probably get mad at this analogy, right? But if somebody's addicted to something and you keep giving them more of their addiction, you're not helping them. But I also understand how hard it can be if somebody's your friend. So I really think taking that approach of you don't do that, you don't loan money. If somebody needs it the one time and you're like, okay, well, here's a gift, they don't come back again, because generally speaking, you make it kind of that hard one time. Just make it clear. I don't know. What do you think, Brigid?
Yeah, I think a big thing is being aware of the foot in the door of, hey, you want to pick me up a soda at the gas station? That type of thing that escalates into like dinner or this or that, and realizing, again, are these one-sided relationships? Are you getting anything out of the relationship too? I mean, there are definitely situations that, I can think of in my past way too many that I gave funds to someone who was guilting me and made me be like, oh, well, I'd love to go do this with you, but I don't have the funds to be able to do it. If you pay for me to do this, then I can go with you. And realizing too late that that's not a friendship that's healthy. But I also think that it's important to know that your real friends, and ideally family too, want to support you and want the best for you and don't want to put you on a strain, whether it's financial, emotional, and you should be able to have these conversations with the people that matter to you, and they should be able to listen. I mean, I have one friend, Christina, where we literally just swap back and forth of who's paying for dinner. It's nothing fancy. It's just like the Chinese food around the corner from her. And that's a casual arrangement. I know that if there was a time where I'm like, hey, I can't really afford to go out this week, she'll be like, here, come over, it's my treat. Or like, we'll pick up something from the grocery store. I think it also becomes difficult to identify when, if you're in a situation, especially being disabled, if you're on limited income, if you end up in a financially abusive situation. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes.
Or
do you have a good example in particular of what would be considered financial abusive situation?
Yeah, I mean, again, trigger warning for like my life. I mean, my mom was not working. She was a stay-at-home mom taking care of more disability involved younger brother, me. When you have a dad who was going off the hinges with God knows how many substances and stuff, but that's your only financial realm out, it takes a while. You can't just leave. You can't just go and get an apartment, security deposit, when all of your finances are tied. He decided to, it was a joint account. He went and cleared out the money. There's nothing that you can really do about it because, like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think when being in a situation, if you're in a relationship and you have to ask permission or to get money for the basic things that you need as a human being, like I'm talking about shampoo, conditioner, something that makes you happy. If your fun money something is not an account of what's going on, I know budgets can be tight. I've had it myself where it's like I get $20 for a month to do whatever I want. Like that's my fun thing. But I've also seen relationships where the person who's the breadwinner or the main income source is able to do whatever they want with their money, and whoever they're with maybe gets the scraps, but has to feel bad asking to go get a haircut while their partner buys a $3,000 gaming computer. That type of situation. You want to talk about some of that?
So, so again, my suggestion is to try to like avoid getting in those in the first place.
Easier said than done.
Exactly. No, I 100% agree, right? So how can somebody leave that situation, especially if they're living with the person? They're semi-dependent on the person. It can feel like a trap.
It is.
Like, it is an abusive relationship, right? It's just a different type. Do you have any examples of anyone who's left a situation like that? And I mean, it won't be easy, but
Oh yeah, I've done it. I've helped other people do it. A big resource in the United States is 211. They can put you in touch with domestic violence shelters. There are opportunities to leave, but the most dangerous time is honestly when someone decides to leave those abusive situations. So number one, always make sure that you have your important documents with you, like birth certificates, credit cards, title to your car. Make sure that you have that either on you or somewhere that you can access it. Maybe you have a friend that can store those documents at their place, but always make sure that you have that. Open up a new bank account at a different bank than you currently have that's just in your name. Like that's a huge one, because even though they shouldn't, I know, having been there, that sometimes banks will connect the accounts. It's not good, and you can yell at them later, but when you're in crisis, last thing you want to think about. So there are resources, financial.
But what about if it's more like a friend? And what about somebody just like things have been going on for a while and they just realized that they've bought dinner every time or bought the movies every time for their friend for a year, right? And I think those can be, awkward. And again, it's one thing if you have some money and the friend doesn't, to want to be able to
treat them,
but then make that, clear. Like, don't let it go unsaid. Like, I brought a friend to, we have this big carnival called the Big E. Do you know, Brigid? It's in Massachusetts. No. It's like the Eastern States Exposition. Anyway, it's really big. And I invited a friend who I knew could probably use some money for it. And I offered to either drive her or help, or I think she even brought her own money, but I offered to pay for like one or two things. But that's because I wanted her company. It was clear, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's also where it is, where if it's an accident, if the person forgot, right? Or there's excuses. But if it's clear that this is what you're doing.
How many times, okay, like I literally have brain damage. Like on the list of diagnoses that I have is traumatic brain injury. I have only forgotten my wallet somewhere once. Like if I'm going out somewhere, I bring my wallet. I don't really know where my ID is right now. I'm betting money it's currently in my car, but like I still bring my wallet. I see these things online of people being like, yeah, they forgot their wallet, blah, blah, blah. Like this is the third time that they've gone out to dinner. And
you like the 3-time rule?
wallet.
Can we make this a rule?
Sure.
Like 3 times, then you just need to cut them off. And maybe after the first time, tell them no more. Tell them no more at all. Don't tell them you have a 3-time rule.
Again, it kind of comes back to knowing yourself. If you, again, a whole variety of people may be listening to this. If your communication method is better through written word, send the text message of, hey, I'm really sorry to bring this up. I've noticed I've been paying a lot for the meals lately, and it's just putting a strain on me. Next time we hang out, why don't we try to do something for free? Like, there are still free options out there, but whether it's spoken or verbal, bringing up boundaries before you're before you're sitting down at the table for meal number 4, you need to have that stuff. And again, a good friend should be able to hear you out and be like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, next time meals on me, or here, let me Venmo you. If they get defensive, one, look at how you're having that conversation with them. Use I messages. I feel like blah, 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 instead of you do this, blah, blah, blah. It's how you communicate.
I thought you were talking about like iPhone iMessages for a moment.
You know
and
what?
I'm like, man, are you leaving Android users just completely out? So
but no, like middle school, like the iMessages.
I know what you mean now. Yeah.
I hated those. I made fun of them, but I do see their value some days. Sometimes I think you do need to have the difficult conversations and understand that for finances, you might have an emergency come up. Like there are very few of us out there, especially who are on disability income, limited income, that have the reserve funds in case my engine stops working. And so those meals here and there might not add up when you're in the good space, but if you're suddenly down without a car and you can't get to work, that $75 over the course of like a month does make a difference.
Yeah, and I mean, but also don't like have somebody pay you back like $50 a month. Like if you're giving them 600, you either have the money. Any money that you give to a friend should also just never be a loan. You should plan on never getting that money back. Anytime I've done it, it's just, and if it's family, if it's even more awkward, right? And at the end of the day, like, oh yeah, I'll pay you back. It just creates so much uncomfortable conversation. So
and if there is something that needs to be repaid, do a contract. I was cat sitting for my friend.
But if you start making all of your friends sign contracts for paying for your lunch, you probably won't have any friends soon. But that might also solve your problem. So
totally. But I was cat sitting for my friend, and I noticed on the fridge a contract that she actually had with her kid who's in high school about like paying for a phone and some other stuff, and it outlined how much he had to pay back a month per week and how you could pay the balance off. Like, again, she's good with finances. She's helped me with stuff. But I did have to laugh where it's like, yeah, no, teaching your son that if he wanted this, he has to be able to repay it and upholding contracts.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Or just, again, having some sort of agreement, clear communication. Trying to think of some other times, either I've been scammed or somebody I know. We talked, it's a lot. Now, what about family members? I kind of led into that, right? If you're comfortable talking about it, Brigid, or just some examples where, I mean, you're living at home, you get your first job. And I ran into this situation recently and I got the phone call. because he's making $75,000 a year and his parents are asking him to pay to remodel the kitchen and he doesn't have any savings. He needs to save to move out. They sold him a $50,000 car. I didn't quite understand that one. Seemed like almost they bought the car and regretted it, or it could only be worth 30,000, right? Like, you don't know. I think it can be a lot harder. Before the show, Brigid and I were talking about just cultural differences where sometimes, things are more expected from family members or not. But any tips on what to do when, you think a family member is trying to take advantage of you financially?
I think a big thing is and this applies not just to family members, but especially family members. You don't have to discuss your financial status with them. I think that can open the door. If someone were to say like, oh yeah, I just got a raise, or I won the lottery, like, look at that. Like, when lottery winners, they love to try to hide it from their families because everyone comes out of the woodwork being like, hey, like, second cousin bestie. And so sometimes you do end up in situations where your family knows that you just got a windfall, stimulus check, disability back payment, something, and want you to give the money to them or use it for them. And they do try to guilt you with the whole, we've done so much for you. I'll remind anyone who's young and listening to this that if a family member says, I housed you and fed you, yes, they legally have to do that. That's literally the bare minimum to keeping you alive. So that whole guilt thing, I'm really thankful that my mother does not have the Irish guilt going on. No, but if a family has gone above and beyond, then again, maybe think of a one-time gift, paying rent, something else. If you're paying more in rent, though, to your family than you would if you're living in a one-bedroom apartment by yourself, if you become the major household financial powerhouse and you're supporting everyone else, but they're still treating you like a kid and being like, oh, you need to turn off your electronics at 10 o'clock at night. Meanwhile, you're the person who's paying for the mortgage. That's not a healthy relationship. So I think going back, that comes down to, what are your boundaries? What is your financial sense? What is your goal? I think we haven't really talked that much about having financial goals. And by having one or multiple, that's a little bit of a way to anchor yourself, to be like, hey, I want to go to France. It's going to cost this amount of money. If I give $500 to my mom, I'm going to maybe never see that again. And it's going to take me longer to reach my financial goal. Having financial goals, having financial purpose, having some of those savings and security. Remember that you may be part of a family, friendship, partnership, relationship, whatever. And you also need to think for yourself a little bit. And what is it that you need for stability, for safety's sake? Yeah. What you think?
No, I think that's good. I also think it's really helpful for really everyone in their life to try to have somebody who can, one of two things. One of them is, somebody to like bounce things off of, right? And, like a therapist, right? Or somebody who's just like an independent, objective party. It can be a friend who knows you well. Try to have somebody kind of removed from the situation and just tell them the story and see what they say. Another one is, maybe see if there's another family member who might know the family members in question. Because a lot of times that can also be extremely validating. So if there's siblings and there's one sibling who causes a lot of drama and she's asking or taking advantage of you, generally speaking, they try to do it with the other family members too. Like, you're not the only one. Or again, it can be validating that it's not you, right? That, having somebody who knows both of you be able to give an opinion can sometimes really hold a lot of weight.
Yeah. And I mean, that's true too, going back to the friendship one. Maybe there's always that one person that forgets their wallet every single time you guys go out to the movies to eat. Maybe other people in the friendship group are also kind of feeling the pressure, or maybe they don't mind. But yeah, having that objective opinion. And sometimes I know for myself, I think I've spoken before about the fact that I can't make myself a budget. I have to pretend it's for someone else. It's a logic thing. Don't shame my autistic brain. I saw that face. No, so like, think about the situation that you're in as if it was your friend. Like, hey, if you are in the financial situation with your family, be like, oh, what if my friend Steve was giving his mom $800 a month and she was treating him poorly? What would I say to Steve? How would I, because we sometimes are too much in the eye of the storm to have an objective view of what's right, what's wrong, and we have that emotional connection to the situation of, oh, well, they've been my friend for so long, or I really love them and that's why I'm doing this. It's like, yeah, and that's not okay.
And if they loved you, they wouldn't be doing this to you and putting you in this position.
Yup.
So at the end of the day, do what autistic people do really well and just be very blunt.
Yep.
And just like, hey, here's a rule. You have your, and I'm kind of like summarizing here now. I think we discussed, have your rule, have like your 3 times. Nobody forgets their wallet 3 times in a row, right? That's not a friend. Don't give loans to friends. If you want to do something for a friend, consider it a gift, give them a gift. Always use friends and family when paying people money for scams, right? Or to, well.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, no, the other one. Like,
yes.
Never use friends.
Never use. So you don't get scammed. That credit cards have a lot of fraud prevention. Now, keep in mind, that's fraud prevention. If somebody but if you give money to somebody and they, like, if you buy somebody $1,000 of gift cards with your credit card and they steal those gift cards for you, no, that's not fraud. You bought those credit cards willingly. So don't do stupid shit is also, I mean, that's just a good rule for life. But no, in all seriousness, something to keep an eye out. And, it's very important to have like somebody you can bounce ideas off of, to hear like that you're like not alone. Because maybe the way you feel about something, maybe it is really weird, right? Maybe it is strange. Or maybe what the person's doing is semi-normal. Maybe they're neurotypical and trying to be nice, but they come across really weird to us. Yeah. I think I ask my wife sometimes, I don't have any good examples, but she'll probably think of like 50 after this, where, I think somebody's being weird about something money-wise, and she's like, they're being nice. I'm like, whoa. So, but having that person who can be objective with you is also really important, right? To be able to be like, hey, here's what happened. What do you think? Kind of like how people will, ask questions on Reddit. Like
objective and safe person.
Safe, I'll add yes, that. Yes, please. Very important.
Yeah. And again, if you do find yourself in a position where you're quite literally financially trapped, 211 and connection to local domestic violence centers in your area can help provide you a little bit more guidance, because financial abuse, isolating someone, preventing them from being able to be a human by limiting their financial ability, like, that's not okay, and you don't deserve to live that way.
Yeah.
All right.
That is good.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a review if you'd like. We're always here to talk about your financial cues and hopefully provide some A's.
I had to think about that for longer than I should have with Q's and A's. And this one, we tried to make it a little fun, but it also just was like a very serious and important topic. Apologize if slightly somber, but most of ours are just like completely fun and off the rails. But we also wanted, this is probably the most entertaining on this subject that you will ever attend. So
Yes.
if we made this slightly entertaining and you watched it to the end, imagine what we can do with other topics that are not only like a fraction as boring.
Right. Like, there are entire ones that I don't bring up, trauma or like scary stuff. No, I tend to like lower the thing, but I do mention sparkles a lot more, and I'm wearing a crown, so that's something.
Yeah. Oh, and next time I will show what you're making for Emma, right? Her money tiara or crown or bow. I don't know, whatever we're making. I feel like you're going to send two things and I'm going to be forced to wear a crown while Emma is wearing a tiara.
Yeah.
But yeah. I know you already planned that, so I didn't give you any
absolutely.
ideas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.